I was as shocked as a newborn when it gets its ass slapped to discover that now with Labor in power, even just a minister of the government coming out and saying, yeah, we know the environment's as f***ed as present day Lindsay Lohan. In fact, it's worse than what you thought it was. Here's how bad it is. It's as bad as when no one comes to your birthday party because they're all extinct. Even that. A doomsday announcement after 9 years of the Liberals hiding it like Homer when he was sanitation commissioner. Daunting, horrific stuff announced. But even just hearing Plibersek announce it in office, auditory chloroform. Best bedtime story I've ever been read, as it was the only bedtime story I've ever been read, as Susan Lee didn't read shit! It's big news. Tanya did the first step to Tony Robbins' ultimate problem-solving formula. She saw it as it is, but not worse than what it is. And she also acknowledged that all of this is reversible. And yes, we will get into that, but first, you're going to take your medicine. Something you don't regularly take, which is a nice healthy dose of how shit the Liberal Party is. Oh, like this video if you were totally pranked by that statement. As pranked as when you go to McDonald's, you ask for a sundae, and they hand you a calendar with Sunday circled! Oh, how unannoying was that, guys? Here's what Tanya said. It was the happiest I've ever been. Like when I walked into Disneyland, distant second, because after a while, yeah, we get it's a small, small world. Shut the f*** up! Distant second to this press conference. The head of the environment in Australia saved 40 to 80,000 pieces of plastic per square kilometre in Australian waters around major cities. Your crazy bones from when you were 10, floating around, killing sea life. And as such, I hope it one day chokes your child. Speaking of something I didn't know that existed, have you ever heard of ghost nets? They're abandoned fishing tackle that just haunts the Torres Straits, killing up to 14,000 sea turtles a year. Cunts. Is there anything more majestic than a sea turtle? Maybe Keith David's anus. I don't know, I haven't seen it. The Murray-Darling is terminal. Again, over the moon that Plibersek even acknowledged that and pointed out it was Labor that passed the Murray-Darling Basin Plan. And then, when it was handed over to the Liberal Party, it was like handing over a pie to Jason Biggs. They f***ed it. Labor legislated for 450 gigalitres to be handed over to the Darling and environmental flow. You know how much the Liberals handed? 2 gigalitres. What? Absolute criminals. If I was dictator, you know what I'd do to them? I'd probably just do a lot of coke and gambling and forget about it, TBH. Also this, how much does this make your heart go? An area the size of Tasmania of not just habitat, critical habitat. Habitat that is critical to the survival of a species. An area the size of that, Tasmania, cleared. Jesus Christ. Couldn't that have been concentrated entirely on Tasmania? The soil across the entire continent is now graded as, much like people in Kempsey, generally poor. There's now almost thousands of endangered species thanks mostly to one anonymous man that really likes pizza from its homeland. Manly. Most of these endangered species are from New South Wales, obviously, due to the double whammy of 10 years of state and federal coalition. So it was just this lawless loot of ancient timber. And this all came from a State of the Environment report, which is a report set up by Labor under Keating. Of course it was set up by Keating. If it was set up by Howard, it would be called the State of the Environment, how that affects the cricket. I do like how that man looks like me until 25, and then for the rest of his life he just looked like this. King. George Costanza if he was an old chimp. It comes out every 5 years. It's a composition of all the data we have about the environment and how it's faring. And you know what? All you had to do was read Sue Arnold's articles in Independent Australia. They said exactly what that report said. She's the only journalist in the country that isn't one of these twitchy, visibly degenerate subhumans that comprises of the Canberra Press Gallery, asking Plibersek questions like, you've been in office for 6 seconds and you haven't fixed 10 years of environmental degradation. Do you care to, do you have a statement on that? I don't know, because as soon as she learned about it, she immediately told you. Susan Lee kept this in her fucking drawer for 6 months. It's so diabolically selfish. We're talking about life support systems here. It's like hearing over a spaceship, oxygen pump critically damaged, and thinking, if I just ignore it, maybe I can still be captain when the ship explodes. The big takeaway from all this is it was astonishing to hear the head of the environment portfolio, Aussie Gaia, saying exactly what Sue Arnold in Independent Australia has been saying for years, which is, and this is really monumental work for her to accomplish all by herself, so props to Sue for doing it. Amazing work, check her out. But she essentially discovered that there are no laws protecting the environment in Australia now. The Liberals, being the rats on the bureaucratic ship of Australia they are, they chewed through every last one of the checks and balances in the country. So there's always a loophole developers and farmers can get around if, theoretically, they ever had to defend themselves in court, which they never would, because the Liberals nearly halved the Department of the Environment's budget. Like, just think about what a cut that is. That is deeper than when Ben Affleck found out that no one liked his Batman movie. Imagine if Tony Abbott came out with his massive cuts and said that he was cutting the health budget in half. It would be the national equivalent of one of those half men on the streets of Bangladesh. Half means half capacity. That's why 93% of the critical land that was cleared, 93%, the Department of the Environment didn't even know about. Didn't even have enough manpower to check Google Maps, let alone start court proceedings. After all, it's not like they were in charge of something important like John Barilaro's feelings. And I'm sorry, I know I go on about this all the time, but it's just like, look, you got a shit education system, you got bad economic management, those things are fixable. If you kill the Murray-Darling, which the Liberals very nearly did, the fact that the Darling Basin Authority that Labor set up under Rudd in whatever robot skitzing out capacity it was functioning in, that did stop it from completely dying in 2019. That's how terrifyingly close it got. That's how criminally corrupt the last government was. They nearly killed the most important freshwater system in a continent where the water is like self-esteem for people on Reddit. Very, very rare. And the fact that we now have an environment minister that is as concerned as Sue Arnold, it's water in the desert. Like, you know how shockingly cheap it would be to stop the vast majority of special extinction? Even in the era of climate change, $1 billion a year. Shameful. The Liberals let major corporations get away with $50 billion a year in tax evasion, and I'd be cool with it if it was just $49 billion. Give us the billion to save this thing. That's why you've got to become as devoted as a Jehovah's Witness to the Labor Party. In fact, more so. Cut your nuts off, become a eunuch so you can concentrate better on remembering that's to own the lip with. But this right here is reason enough to keep Labor in power from now until 2030. 30% of Australia protected in just 8 years. It's another huge environmental accomplishment under the Labor Party belt. Up there with saving the Tasmanian forest, Kakadu, the Great Barrier Reef, the Daintree, got the United States and China to stay in Copenhagen and negotiate. Like, Christ, if it wasn't for Rudd, no Paris Accord. And if it wasn't for Keating, there would be oil companies drilling in Antarctica as we speak. It would have been for the last 30 years. So as you can plainly see by their record, Labor kicks massive, earth-changing environmental goals. They punch well above their weight, and as you can clearly see, it's being continued on with Albo under Tanya, as she comes out and announces that they're going to be preserving a third of the country. Not just that, she's been talking to our Pacific neighbours on, and how's this for a goal? Plastic-free Pacific within our lifetime. I'm more impressed by that than man landing on the moon, but not as impressed as I am with him playing golf up there, although, in a way, look at it. The universe's easiest putt-putt range. Could you imagine how bad you would feel if you missed that? It would cancel out the euphoria of being on the moon. I'm so happy about that. I'm sick of my nuts shrinking because of all the plastic. Yes, that's the only reason that's happening. And unlike the previous government who wanted to spend $1 billion of your money convincing you they're recycling more, just to give you an idea of how little $1 billion actually is, Tanya actually is getting more recycling programs online. She's doing the much more important part, which is reducing the amount of plastic to begin with, which is like 90% of the problem that, again, state Labor governments are already addressing. And this is the really exciting part. They're encouraging research in universities that develops plastic from algae instead of petrol. I mean, me. I've got to stop calling journalists pond scum. Pond scum is way better than anyone who works for Channel 9. So like this video if you like where this is going. Cancel out all the internet swill who are going to complain that you're not critical of the government, therefore you're biased. I'm a genius. Negativity equals the truth. Oh no, you being pointlessly negative only reflects your truth. And I get it. I get that that's how you feel on the inside about yourself and you're just reflecting your shit reality onto the rest of the world. But you being critical for no reason makes you as useless as the plastic bags milling around the ocean that Labor's about to clean up. This isn't me being biased. This is my honest opinion. My honest opinion is that I like your money getting spent well. Sorry you don't. Sorry to not deliberately manipulate you like the ABC does with their balance of ignoring every good thing Labor does and then just chucking in, oh, look, Dutton only ate 10 babies this week instead of 50. Guess both parties are on par. Sorry they conditioned you into thinking that that's what not being biased looks like. But I, on the other hand, like having provably one of the best governments on earth governing one of the wealthiest nations on earth so they can direct our resources into developing plastic out of algae, especially with the condition the world is currently in. But sure, you feel free to revert to your viewpoint that isn't even yours, you Pavlov dog, that they're both shit, because that's not cognitive bias. No, everyone's biased except you. Source you. Wow, what a non-biased source. Oh look, here's another citation. You. So like this video if you're more enlightened than these dissenting professors, and speaking of money getting well spent, make sure you sign up to our Patreon, because to keep this government in, someone in the media landscape has to keep pointing out, hey, you know what's better than a mass extinction? National parks that you can wander through and see, wow, a used condom. Someone actually f***ed in that cave. Like and subscribe.
Please share and comment below. Comment.